When it comes to characters in the Naruto series, there are a ton of powerful characters in the franchise. Some are more powerful than others, and some are just so powerful that they, in their own right, deserve to be mentioned alone, separate of other characters when we talk about power groups. One such group are the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, and while each of the 7 Hokage is the strongest of the 5 Kage during each of their individual runs as Hokage, one question still tends to get brought up a lot more in the fandom than it actually should, which is who should be stronger between Hokage Naruto that you see in Boruto and Hashirama Senju. That's why in today's video I wanted to tackle this subject head on and explain to you guys why the gap in power between these two characters, it doesn't just exist, but it's an extremely large gap. So let's get the easy surface level answer out of the way. Who is stronger between Hokage Naruto and Hashirama? The answer is Naruto, and it's not even close. I know the knee-jerk reaction is to say,
but Naruto, explain. What is Naruto gonna do against Hashirama's 1000 Buddha hand statue? What about the wood release golem that Hashirama can make?
Being blunt, these two, they're not in the same tier of power. The gap is high enough that the Buddha statue, all the cute little wood dragons that Hashirama can make, and that wood golem isn't going to be enough to close the gap. To prove this, I'm not just going to be using the cop-out answer that almost everyone tends to use when it comes to talking about how strong Boruto characters is, which is to say that the Boruto power levels are just absolutely busted and make no sense. Instead, I'm not only going to explain to you how we got to this point, but also bring up evidence that I don't think some of you guys are aware of. After Hashirama took back the chakra seals from Naruto and Sasuke in Naruto chapter 690, which to clear up any confusion it might be there in the comment section, that has no bearing on the ability for Sasuke to use the Rinnegan or for Naruto to use his six-pass Sage mode, which is the form he used when he kicked away the truth-seeking orbs Madara used to try and kill Guy, or the ability to use six-pass power, which is the byproduct of simultaneously using the chakra of the 9 Biju, which gives the power of truth-seeking orbs in flight. Neither of those powers requires Hashirama's seal. After the Naruto versus Sasuke battle took place, where a 17-year-old Naruto, who was already stronger than any version of Hashirama, got stronger immediately following this battle. Before the battle took place, Hashirama asked the yang half of the Nine Tails to go back inside of Naruto, and he agreed to do so, which is why off-screen following this battle, Naruto got the other half of the Nine Tails. So take everything you saw Naruto do and imagine adding in another half of the Nine-Tailed Fox on top of that. In the 14 years to take place between Naruto chapter 699 and chapter 700, we know with absolute certainty that Naruto continued training himself despite gradually taking on more responsibilities within both the village and the Land of Fire itself. The first year after the war ended, we saw Naruto on a series of missions with Sai, where he was hunting down rogue shinobi who deserted after the 4th Ninja War ended and staying sharp in combat that way, which we learn in the Kakashi story Lightning in the Frozen Sky. By the time we get to the events of Naruto the Last, the promotional materials that were given to us for the movie, which Naruto series creator Masashi Kishimoto, on top of co-writing the movie, also said in the promo run for the movie itself to consider it to be Naruto chapter 699.5. In the promotional materials and in the novelization for the movie, we were told that Tenseigan Chakra Mode Tenari was in possession of a similar chakra level of Kaguya. In that movie, we saw Naruto in his base take a condensed Tenseigan Chakra Blast from Tenari right after he kidnapped Hinata that hit Naruto in the chest and left behind a crater so massive that it engulfed a chunk of the area on Earth, and the chakra is shown shooting up into the sky and cracking the outer husk of the moon a few seconds later, which for reference, the moon is 238,000 miles away from the Earth. Naruto in base not only withstood an attack that made a crater bigger than any of the ones we saw from any of the Biju Dama that you saw in the 4th Great Ninja War, but the attack required Sakura healing Naruto non-stop for 3 days to restore him to full health. This same Naruto then went on to fight Tenseigan Chakra Mode Tenari, who possessed several truth-seeking orbs and cutting power that could slice through half of that hollow moon to a relative stalemate while holding back and using KCM2 in the process, and once he got pissed off and focused the full power of the Nine Tails into a single punch, he absolutely one-shot Tenari. Even if you take the statement of Tenari having a similar level of chakra to Kaguya to say that they were only in the same tier of power, and Kaguya was at the top of the tier and Tenari was only in the middle or the lower end of that tier, that's significant when you consider that the weakest version of Kaguya that we saw in Naruto's manga, who had just emerged from Madara's body, was already stated to be way stronger than Ten Tails level by Naruto and company, and his comp for the Ten Tails level of power was double Rinnegan Madara. So being in that same tier of power power as Kaguya, even on the lower end, is going to put you way above anything you saw with double Rinnegan Madara, with the Rinne Sharingan, God Tree Absorb. Naruto sensed that power and still said this is way stronger. Sasuke sensed Kaguya and stated that she was so powerful he found it impossible to believe that someone like this even existed, and this comes right after he just met the floating space boogers of the Sage's Six Paths. Even if you go on the lower end and say that this is merely seeing Tensegan Chakra Mode scenarios barely scratching the surface of that tier, that's still above Hashirama. Hashirama literally placed himself above KCM2 War Arc Naruto, but when he sensed Jubi Obito, he went, yeah, this guy's stronger than me. While we don't know if he was only referring to the Edo Tensei Sage Mode version of himself or if he was referring to the live version of himself, we do know that while Orochimaru and Kabuto's Edo Tensei didn't bring them back to full power, it brought them back close to full power. So I don't think that's enough to say that full power Sage Mode Hashirama is at Jubi Obito level, but even if you did, that's still below the tier that we're referencing, which is the Kaguya tier, since Jubi Obito is a lot weaker than 2 Rinnegan Madara, let alone a lot weaker than Kaguya. We have another statement that is made during the events of the Sasuke story of Sunrise in a scene that was not adapted in the anime version of the story. The narrator, an impartial third party, tells us that Sasuke, and by extension Naruto, is already powerful enough that he can take on a Kaguya level of power and win at that point in the timeline. This would mean that both the Kaguya who fully emerged out of Madara and the version of Kaguya who powered up to her strongest point, according to Zetsu, right before she got trapped in the Six Paths Shibaku Tensei, Zetsu said that she was exponentially stronger than she was before. This narrator statement is literally made after Naruto has already married Hinata and we're several months removed from that wedding. This is really important to take note of for one reason. Naruto during this time was still making it a point to train, just like Sasuke was, because both of them had the same thought in their mind after they faced Kaguya. Why was someone so powerful that the Sage of Six Paths, when asked by Naruto if Kaguya was stronger than him, replied that Mother's power was rivaled by none other, so basically saying, yes, she's stronger than me. Why would somebody this powerful need an army? This led to the two of them continuing to train, and we know that during this time Naruto has continued to train the Sage Mode, because we're told in the Code Assault arc that he never stopped training and can stay in Sage Mode longer and can use more nature energy than he could before. This is important to take note of because Naruto's chakra levels got a buff by getting the other half of the Nine Tails, but even taking that out of consideration, since Naruto did lose Kurama, Naruto continued training even after he got that second half of chakra from Kurama. It's easy to say that Naruto by himself doesn't have a large chakra pool, but that is emphatically false. The 1000 clones that Naruto made in Naruto chapter 1 was literally him using his own chakra. There was no Nine Tails chakra being used when he did that. We were told in the Akatsuki suppression arc by Kakashi that Naruto's own chakra levels were high enough that they were 4 times that of Kakashi, someone who was an elite Jonin, and he even goes as far as to say that if Naruto was using Kurama's chakra, which at that point was only 1/2 of Kurama's chakra, that it would have been 100 times that of Kakashi's chakra levels. We learn later on in Naruto's manga that Naruto's own natural chakra levels were enough to suppress the Nine Tails chakra, and we literally see this being the case when Naruto on his own is able to inflict heavy damage on the Yang half of the Nine Tails in Naruto volume 53 using only Naruto's chakra, and once he needed to dish out the final blow, Naruto made another 1000 shadow clone, each using a giant Rasengan to smash the Nine Tails into submission. By the time that statement is made in the Sasuke story of Sunrise, Naruto has spent an additional 3 years of training and raising his chakra levels. The training didn't stop once he became married either. Naruto is literally shown in the epilogue for Naruto the Last continuing to train when Boruto's 5 years old and Himawari is 3 years old, which means that over half of that time period of the 14-year time skip between Naruto chapter 699 and chapter 700, Naruto continued his training. Taking it a step further and addressing the elephant in the room, people tend to misconstrue what Kurama said in Naruto Gaiden, which is set 14 years after the Ninja War. He didn't call Naruto weaker, he merely said that being Hokage made him rusty, which implies that he's talking about his combat senses having dulled as Hokage. But when we factor in Boruto's anime, we're literally shown right after this arc concludes that Naruto took Kurama's taunting to heart and has started training while having his shadow clones handle the other work duties that the Hokage requires, because we see him training with the Hokage guards breaking out a barrier ninjutsu in the anime. When we go to the Boruto manga, we're told in the manga that Kaguya specifically wrote down Momoshiki and Kinshiki by name in her scroll scroll. Not the entire clan, those two by name were written down because Sasuke knows both of their names despite not hearing both names in the manga prior to this, and when he reveals what the scroll said, it says specifically that Kaguya was preparing an army for a pair of invaders, and the novelization for the movie, which was written by the former Boruto series writer Ukyo Kodachi, flat out states that Momoshiki and Kinshiki is a duo, are the beings so powerful that not even Kaguya could oppose them without an army. This is important to keep in mind because Naruto, despite having 50% of his chakra absorbed, was not getting walked by the fusion of those two beings, which for argument's sake, we'll say that Kaguya knew Momoshiki and Kinshiki could fuse, and she was scared of that fused Momoshiki. In the manga, base Naruto at 50% chakra is shown blocking and dodging attacks from that fusion that Kaguya was afraid of, which is further proof that Naruto and base could have walked base Momoshiki. Even if we go with the same argument as Tenseigan Chakra Motoneri and say that these are just individuals who were only in the same tier as Kaguya, that's still a higher tier than any 10 Tails level character from Naruto Shippuden, which means Hashirama's outclassed. It's a classic example of a traditional shonen power creep. The enemies have gotten stronger, which means that the supporting characters by extension have gotten stronger, which for as hard of a pill as it is to swallow, that's exactly where we are. Power cliffing happens in shonen. In fact, the Naruto series creator Masashi Kishimoto himself literally warned us that the increase in power was something that worried him when he did one of his final interviews regarding Boruto way back at Jump Fest of 2017, just before the anime debuted in 2017 and right as the manga was approaching 1 year publication. He literally says that Naruto and Sasuke have gotten too powerful and that the enemies have gotten even more powerful and that they need to find new ways to express that power without overshadowing the fights with the kids fight, which is why we saw fights where Naruto takes part in scaled down in order to not overshadow Boruto's generation. Naruto fights people who absorb jutsu or shrink jutsu, which forces him only to use taijutsu. Hashirama is strong, but narratively, we've gone way past those levels of powers that Hashirama displayed. I get it, the fights don't feel as large in Boruto, but you have the narrative saying otherwise about the level of power for people like Naruto, and we have the series creator and the official material telling us otherwise. The power is just being expressed differently. I've used this comparison before, but it's not too different than what you get in Dragon Ball. You only need a power level of 10,000 blow up a planet, yet when we see Goku fight Cell, the two of them are way above that 10,000 level of power, but we don't see the planet blow up when they have a stray ki blast hit the ground, which is because they have control over the output of that power. It's the same thing for Naruto. Fighting those enemies like Fused Momoshiki, Jigen, and Ishiki, you're fighting people who absorb or they shrink your jutsu, so your chakra is used to amp your taijutsu attacks and it's meant to amp your speed because you can't waste it on ninjutsu. It boils down to feels versus reality. Even without Kurama, Naruto has enough narratively to go over Hashirama because he's already caught Kage in power 13 years prior to even losing Kurama. Hashirama's not weak, but we are at a point where when we consider the power creeps that have occurred in the Boruto era, or even by the end of Naruto's manga, he's not even top 10 when you consider all the different versions of characters who exist in Naruto's manga, which, speaking of, keep notifications turned on because I'll be dropping the top 15 strongest Naruto character videos soon, which I've already put up for preview over on my Patreon a few weeks ago.